receiving revelation. So he says he has that advantage. So Umayr is shocked. So he says, I testify that you are the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because how can he know what just happened between these? Not even the other Qurayshi people knew. So he comes into Islam this way. And what's interesting, as I was preparing the notes for today, I was thinking about the difference between, or the impact that groupthink has versus one-on-one. And a lot of times, unbeknownst to us, we are influenced by the group that we are around, or what our colleagues say, what our friends say, what our families say, and we don't really stop to critique if that's even something that we should think in. We just sort of, yeah, and then you sort of like the conclusion is done. But we never, I speak for myself, very rarely do you stop and be like, is that even true? Is that even right? And that's why in these stories, they're always one-on-one. But when you get somebody one-on-one and you talk to them, you really connect. You really connect with these people. And that's why it's a complete misconception. They have an image in their mind of the Prophet ﷺ, very much the way people today have an image of Islam. That is completely wrong. That's completely, he's not there to take their livelihood. He's not there to ruin their life. He's there to guide people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's all he cares about. He has no worldly desire in that. And as we read later in the seerah to prove this point, when all of these tribes come into Islam, the Prophet ﷺ never interferes in the inner workings of their society and their politics. All he does is send the Sahaba to teach them the Quran and how to make wudu and how to pray. As far as who's the leader and who does this and what we would call today, internal affairs, he doesn't meddle with those internal affairs because his message is not a message of the dunya. His message is the message of the akhirah. So he's not there to mess anything up. So when they get him one-on-one, they see that he's genuine. And I've seen this in my own life. When you have, when we were in school, somebody told somebody I said something about them. And then somebody comes and tells me they said something about me. And now all of a sudden, all day, I'm like, this is my enemy, and I got to fight him, at lunchtime. And he thinks the same thing. And then by the end of the week, we're best friends. What happened in that? وَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهَا عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. Allah says, maybe the one between you and them is enmity. They come in this contact and they see him. And you see what he said to Umar, relax, take it easy. He knows Allah has his back. He says, what are you doing? So, and he just testified. Teach him how to recite the Quran and send his prisoner free. No dunya. Just let go. He goes back to Mecca and he starts calling people to Islam. And this is one of the great Sahaba that went back, in a time of war and brought people into the fold. But the story doesn't end there. Safwan, he hears that Umayr became Muslim. He's like, I had this guy's debt, I had this guy's back. He was going to kill the Prophet. He came back Muslim. So Safwan's like, I'm never going to talk to this guy for the rest of my life. And he's really, really, he's upset. He leaves Mecca because he thinks that the Prophet ﷺ is now going to kill him. Very simple-minded. So he goes to Jeddah, the port city, which is a little bit away from Mecca. Umayr goes back to the Prophet ﷺ. He says, I have a request. And the Prophet said, okay. He said, please leave me Umayr, because Umayr is like my best friend. He's my mate. I don't want bad for him. He's like, a whole life of friendship. Okay, he's not Muslim yet, but we'll work on that. So the Prophet said, okay, I'll leave him to you. And he said, promise me his safety. He said, I promise you his safety. So the Prophet took off his turban and he gave it to Umayr and he said, give this to Safwan as a sign of, that's like a big deal. It's like a sign of, the Prophet's turban was distinct. It was 7 meters long. It was very, noble. It was like his crown, if we could call it that, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Umayr goes to track down Safwan, and he's carrying the turban of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is distinct. And when he sees it, he understands what that message is. And then Safwan becomes Muslim as well. So these are two people who had plotted to assassinate the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that's sort of, what happens with them. Just a note on the Prophet's turban, because I like the Prophet's turban. The Prophet saw 7 meters. That's pretty big for people that know fabric and stuff like that. That's a muhtaram, like we say. It's a really proper turban. And the Prophet's turban, sallallahu, the closest image that we can think of what it looks like is probably the way that the Afghans wear their turbans, which is big, and the Prophet ﷺ would bring down the back, which is called al-adhaba, and he would bring it down to the middle of his back. And this was the Prophet's turban. Now, many of the turbans in the Muslim world, we don't have that part. Some of us do, but the Afghan way, that's pretty much what the Sunnah would have looked like of the Prophet's turban, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just a little factoid. Sometimes that's important. Similar to Umayr and Safwan. Same thing happens with another guy named Fudala, who also wants to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we read in this, and he was making tawaf as well, wanting to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he kind of like bumps into the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam looks at him and he puts his hand on his chest. He's like, Fudala, what's up? What's going on? And he said, the minute he put his hand on my chest, he became Muslim. And then he kissed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, so this was the Prophet's way. This was his way with people. He didn't want to hurt people. He didn't want to harm people. And he put up with a lot. We've been talking now of all of these things that he's put up with. I mean, somebody that wants to kill you, the last thing you're going to be thinking of that transaction is you'll be hugging and kissing. You won't be thinking like that. But this is the effect that he had on people, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can only imagine the effect that he has on us, for people that are devoted to him and love him when we enter him into our life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Back to Medina, another problem that brews is this: after the Battle of Badr, really starts to ignite the tensions between some of the Jewish tribes and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the elder Jews of Medina, his name was Shas bin Qais, and very disturbed with the victory of the Battle of Badr. And he's Madanese, so he's from Medina. So he's hanging out with some of the Madanese, Muslims, and he's sort of